Right. Hello.
Hi, Gayatri.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
I'm going to, before I turn off the commenting section, which I'll tell everyone I'm going to do, I just wanted to make sure the audio and video is okay for everyone. Can you all hear us? AL, will you say something also?
Yeah. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just going to turn off the commenting, and I will turn it back on when towards the end of the conversation, when we do a sort of a Q&A when people want to ask questions.
Okay.
I can turn off commenting. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
So I think we'll just give it another minute, and then I'll start.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do a brief introduction, and then we can sort of dive straight in. And I'm just also going to put this on in the background. So we have that. And then I'll scroll through when we do the conversation. Okay, well, I think we're good to go. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for a very special chat with Interiors Academy and Good Earth India's Anita Lal. My name is Gayatri Rangachari Shah, and I'm a journalist based in Mumbai, India. Interiors Academy was founded during the pandemic to be a hub for conversations that connect and support the global interiors network through a series of online talks and films. When Interiors Academy asked me to come on board to bring forth voices from Indian design, the first person I thought of was Anita Lal, or AL as she is also known. AL is a pioneer and an arbiter of style and taste. Ever since she founded Good Earth in 1996, the world has had access to the finest quality Indian craftsmanship. Basically, she's made Indian design cool and hip. AL has made us aware and appreciate luxury in a new way. Today we talk about artisanal and handmade, but AL did that from the very beginning with Good Earth. She has done so much to elevate indigenous knowledge, which was languishing due to a lack of demand, into our collective consciousness. Through her company, she's created a contemporary design language that is both luxurious and functional and works anywhere in the world. I would like to add that I've never met anyone as passionate about India's enormous heritage in design, in textiles and fabrics, in music and dance, and all the sensorial pleasures this amazing country has to offer. This is a very special conversation in many ways, because for one, AL doesn't really speak too much. She is publicity shy, preferring her team to do the talking. It's also her first Insta Live. I don't know how I got lucky that she said yes to me. In Hindi, we have an expression, "Mere man mein laddu phoot rahe hain," which roughly translates into, "My heart is bursting with euphoria." So AL, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and welcome to your first IG Live.
Thank you, Gayatri. It's, as I said, strange times and strange things are happening, and here we are talking like this, something I'd never imagined. But yes, I think I couldn't say no to you, as you know that, and then here we are. So
tell us where you are. You're in New Delhi, right?
Yeah, I'm in Delhi.
And how has it been working during these bizarre times?
Yeah, Gayatri, actually this time has been, of course, it's such a mixed feeling, but for a lot of us, it's been a time of getting off the merry-go-round. It's a time for quietness. It's a time for being, more contemplative. For us at Good Earth, even as a company, it gave us time to stop, think, see where we are going, because otherwise in day-to-day things, you don't really analyze all the things. And when your sales come down to zero, that's the time you start thinking of, hey, now what do we do? And how do we do things better? And can we cut out more clutter? And, and actually it's been, right now, it's actually busier than ever before. We have team meetings every day between all the people. And I think we'll come out of it a much better company. I think so.
That's wonderful to hear. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm wearing something from your latest campaign. And I know that your team made this happen. Everything, the entire shoot happened
Yes.
virtually.
Yeah,
And that's quite remarkable.
It was. It really, the girls are passionate. And honestly, if you ask me, I mean, we're going to talk about Good Earth and I'm going to talk about it. But if you ask me what gives me the greatest joy, it's the kind of team we have together. It's the people I work with. I love them. I enjoy them. They challenge me. I challenge them. And I think our relationships with
Sorry, can you all hear us? I lost you for a minute, AL.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So I just said, yeah, I
sorry.
can hear you.
Yeah.
No, I said the biggest blessing has been that I work with such wonderful young people who are passionate. And so that's been a joy. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So listen, there are people obviously who are here from India who have joined us, but there are also many people from around the world who will be listening in and maybe seeing this later as well. So if you could take us back to the very beginnings and how Good Earth came to be and your own journey.
Well, firstly, Gayatri, to tell you that I come from a very different background. My father was a professor of English. I grew up in a defense academy near Pune. And then my father moved to Punjab, to Patiala. And again, he was professor of English in the university. I did my master's in psychology in Chandigarh University. So we've been completely in the academia world, you know. And I always thought I'll end up teaching. And I would do my, my PhD in psychology and all that. But then I got married and somehow things never worked out the way I had imagined, but they worked out very nicely, as you know, anyway.
And so then you had, I know that you and I have spoken in the past, and you said you spent a couple of years in Germany, which helped to make you experience a different sort of visual sort of vocabulary. But before, just tell us a little bit about those years in your life.
So going back, Gayatri, as a young woman, I was about in my late 20s, and this was the late 70s in India. Things were very different. It was a closed economy. And the only thing that we really had of value were the crafts, was our weaves and our crafts, and that we had. And there was a great pride because of Kamla Devi ji, Pupul Jekar, Martan Singh. And these were people who made us aware that we've got to look inward, we've got to look at what we have.
I'm just going to say, sorry to interrupt, I'm just going to say that for people who may not know those names, these were stalwarts and really remarkable individuals who did so much for Indian craft and Indian design.
Yeah.
Those are
they made us aware. They made us aware of the. And look, I came from Patiala, and honestly, I mean, always loved handcrafted sari, but I was not as aware of our heritage till people like that, I got to know more about them. So that was the thing. Now, at that time, so Gayatri, what I used to do, the two things that I think that really influenced me was one, the Crafts Museum. Delhi has a most charming museum, which is called the Crafts Museum, Pragati Maidan. And in those days, it was like an ideal village situation because crafts people would come and it was very gentle. And I spent a lot of time there. I hung around with the crafts people. I made friends with them. I saw how there was a guy called Jaydev Baghel. He did the lost wax method of casting. So I learned how they cast brass in dhokra, This was the tribals from Chhattisgarh. And, I saw this lady from Nagaland and how she would walk around the pot and beat it and create a pot rather than the way traditionally it was done. And I also became very friendly with the Madhubani artists. And there's an incident which I can tell you because...
Can you just say what Madhubani is? Just a quick little
description. So Madhubani is a folk art which is done in Bihar generally, in one part of India, and very earthy and very prolific. And they celebrate nature. And a lot of the paintings were done in the in the hut where the wedding, or let's say the wedding night, was supposed to be, consummated. They used to decorate. It was the way of decorating their huts. And actually what happened was that I was very friendly with them. And this is little incident, is interesting. Time we had a tractor company, and he very proudly told me that they've created this large canteen for the workmen. And I asked me to go and inaugurate it. And when I went, I found that there was this beautiful big building, airy, very nice. It had stainless steel tables, benches. But what was on the walls? A beige colored walls. And all the windows and doors were in a dark gray. I guess that's what a factory thinks they must do. But when I saw it, I said, guys, this is so sad. I mean, imagine the people coming for a break from their work and seeing just these blank walls. So I asked my husband, I said, if you don't mind, should I do something crazy? He said, go ahead. So I got this bunch from Madhubani. They had just finished their stint. They used to come for 1 month at a time to the Crafts Museum. So I got them to come to the factory. I gave them the whole commission. They were very happy. They could earn more money. And then they stayed at the factory. And they could only work in the evenings. And I used to drive all the way from Delhi to Faridabad in the evenings to be with them. And in fact, one of the...
Faridabad is another town near Delhi.
It's an industrial town. It's about, I don't know, it's about an hour away from Delhi. And these people created, I told them, just make magical forest. And they created the most wonderful magical forest around the whole canteen and wall from top to bottom. It was all over. And at those days, I remember when I used to go in the evenings, union leader, they were so excited that I would come. They would give me chai. I became best friends with my husband's union leader and all the union guys. And, what happened was, Gayatri, it showed me that, you can do these small things and it creates pleasure. It makes people think you care. And it also gave a lot of importance to the Madhubani people. So these was those influences, I think, that were inside me to say, I must do something more with the crafts.
Right. And then, of course, you spent a little bit of time in Munich.
Yeah. So at the same time, a few years later, we moved to Munich for about 3-4 years.
And this is in the 1980s, early 80s?
This was 80 to 84. And I was in Munich, and we were staying in a very, very cool part of town where the artist stayed. It was called Schwabing, and it had a lot of boutiques. And I was very fortunate that I had this very cool, very stylish German lady, thin as a stick. Her name was Helga Logothotopoulos. And she, she was my mentor, and she was an artist. So we used to walk down in the mornings just to go to just to look at the shops. And the paint shops were so exciting, the thought of all those paints and brushes. And on our way back, we would stop at boutiques. We would just peep in, say hello, and have a glass of wine with the owners. And, it opened my eyes that shopping can be something quite different from what we had seen in India. And I saw these boutiques with huge plants inside them, and and then I realized that the experience of a shop can be as exciting as the product. And these were things that stayed in my mind. And so 14 years later, I opened Good Earth. I didn't think I'll do anything, but these were the influences. Yes.
Right. And then, of course, you came to pottery.
Yeah. I was also doing pottery in all this. And the thing is, I started it off as a studio pottery. That's Bhanjani, by the way, one of the Madhubani women. And we are doing a Madhubani style pot over here. So I started pottery when the children were going to nursery school, and I took it up as a hobby with Delhi's best pottery. It was called Delhi Blue Pottery. And Mini Singh and Gurcharan Singh, his father, were the potters. And it was, again, life was very laid back in those days, and there's no pressure. It was only for pure joy that I learned pottery.
So this is the late 80s you're talking about, or early 90s?
No, it was actually late 70s.
Oh, late 70s. Okay.
Late 70s.
So, yeah.
And then I worked for many years as a studio potter, but then I started working with rural potters because I realized that rural potters have more skill in their hands because they are traditional potters, and all of us can keep on trying very hard, but we cannot reach the skill levels that they have. But what they don't have is the understanding of what are the markets for their products today. So matkas are beautiful, but then how do you bring it into a modern home? So then I decided to use their skills, as you can see in this picture also, to use their skills and create urns. And so for that we had to change the clay body, we had to change the firing techniques, because they had to be stronger. Matkas can break. So this is a kiln. We built a kiln. I went all the way to Auroville to find someone to build this kiln for me. He was a mad Englishman called Patrick, and Patrick stayed with me
in Pondicherry.
In Pondicherry, yes. And Patrick was a maverick English potter, and he came and he stayed for, I think, 1 year in my house in West End. We were in Delhi at that time, and he built this kiln from scratch. This beautiful, it was wood-fired kiln that we had, yeah.
And I think that's you there.
Doing puja, so before you did any, in good Indian style, we always first did puja before firing anything.
So prayer. This was a little inaugural
kiln.
Prayer.
Before we put in the fire inside the kiln, we always did a puja.
So now tell us, you had these different experiences, and you got exposed to these various different crafts, and were even able to sort of use your hands with them. How did Good Earth then come about? How did you decide to open a store?
Yeah, the store was an accident, total accident, because I was happy just making the pots and all of that. And then it so happens that a family friend had a shop in Bombay. It was a sari shop, and in Kemp's Corner. And he and my husband were like brothers, And he told my husband that, look, I'm closing down this shop. Do you want it for, in those days, the Royal Enfield? We have the Royal Enfield motorbikes. He said, do you want to make a showroom for Royal Enfield? And my children had left the home. Simran had got married. The other two were abroad. And I was bored. And I told my husband, can I take this space and try and create a nice shop for my pots? Of course, he was indulgent. And he said, yes, do that. And there we were. We created... of course, this was most impractical because those pots made us no money. But the thing was, I wanted to... None whatsoever. But I wanted to showcase these pots, but because I realized that I can't just put a whole shop just with pots, then we started painting crockery, and then we added some candles, and then everything came along.
These are images of that first store, correct?
This is the facade. Yes, it was in Kemp's Corner. I was very romantic even back in those days. If you go back to that facade, I just want to explain. The one at the back, that I loved waves. I love the color aquamarine. So you will see that in the and actually even the handle was like a palm tree, and on top it's like a palm etched on the glass. You can't see it. And then, so the whole thing was a lot of romance in there.
Right. And here, this is another photograph of the interior of that store.
Yeah, this was when I did all these beautiful niches, with textures inside them. And people in Bombay actually didn't realize what hit them, because even I had a lot of very bright young NID kids. This boy you see is a boy called Ravi. Brilliant.
So NID, the National Institute of Design.
The National Institute of Design. So, in fact, again, I did a ridiculous thing. I'm sitting in Delhi. I'm opening a shop in Bombay. I have 7 or 8 designers. I have 1 manager and no merchandiser. So, I learned everything the hard way. And but always I had the passion. So I wanted to create. So, people had not seen this kind of color in India at that time in crockery. So this is the first one to bring color. Yes. Yeah,
that's right. Yes, it was quite a game changer, and I don't think people around the world would really understand just what an impact that store made. I mean, Good Earth made. And then, of course, tell us more. So after you opened the Bombay store, when did you open the next? Tell us a little bit about the evolution of the brand.
Yeah, well, after Bombay, first it took us a few years to settle Bombay, because I really knew nothing about anything about retail for sure. And we learned everything backwards, and we So then it took us a little time to stabilize. And then I opened a shop in Delhi. And well, then actually we still were Bombay, Delhi for a long time. And I must tell you that I'm very grateful. In Bombay, we had this. I mean, imagine sitting in Delhi and running a shop in Bombay. We had this wonderful Parsi lady. Her name is Parveen. She's the first person I hired for Good Earth. And, you know, she's still with us. I mean, I look after her. She's there as a grandmother to everybody. She's still with us. And she took full ownership of the Bombay shop. And if I'm grateful to anyone more than anybody else, it was that Parveen held the fort like it was her own place.
And
That was very
of course, in the kind of the dinosaur ages when, you know, there was really no internet and the phones, even in India, sending a fax would take forever. So it was like really a different era.
It was all with fax. You're absolutely right. It can't, I mean, it just doesn't sound real anymore. But that's how it was. But yeah, but always the one thing, Gayatri, I always thought was that I'll never compromise on quality and on what we do. So there were times when the shop was fairly empty because it was very difficult to source things and, you know, set up systems and all. But we just hung on, and that's what happened.
So I'm going to pull up this image because this is like, to me, an iconic Good Earth image. And talk a little bit about your aesthetic and design philosophy and, you know, that language and how you came upon this language.
Yeah, you know, no one starts with a clear, at least I didn't start with any clear idea of what I was going to do. But when I sat with with those young designers from NID, and they said, now what do we do? So my instinct was to say, hey, let's see what's around us and let's create things that we know, you know. And so at that time, it was only to just go back into our own roots and to see. And it was not even roots at that time. At that time, it was just visuals. So I said, what we see in India are colorful saris. You see colorful turbans. You see flowers. And you see chilies. And so this was our first design ever. A girl called Puneet Brar. She's in Auroville now. She created this. Wild. And by the way, we ran chilies for like 20 years. And I'm thinking of reviving it for our 25th year.
Please bring it back, because I just looked at these and I said, where do I get these plates?
Yeah. So, you know, we went berserk. We put every color we wanted. And in those days, Gayatri, in India, the colors that were there were all white with tiny little daisies. And, you know, I mean, that was what the crockery was in those days. And we just went bananas. Yeah, and this is another one, these are the more sophisticated ones which came later, because later we started thinking more about the philosophy to guide us. Earlier, it was just a visual thing. Then I started thinking about philosophy, and then I realized that for the designs to be meaningful and a little bit more timeless, we need to get deeper into cultures, you know, into where they come from. And this one is, of course, very Mughal inspired, because the Mughals, as we know, were one of the most remarkable people in fair. Their level of refinement, the use of color was extraordinary. And so then slowly we started looking deeper, not only into the Mughals, but into our Vedic roots, into our Christian roots, all the roots. India is a very it's a country which has absorbed so many cultures, which has absorbed so many people. Greek. We even did a full collection based on Gandhara, which was the Indo-Greek, Persian, you know, and of course a lot of it was layered with Buddhism. So yeah. These are all the collections.
I'm trying to find the Gandhara one. I know we have one, I think, somewhere.
Gandhara is, yeah. So basically, Gayatri, we started what you call doing every year. I would identify one part of the country or outside the country. Then I would deeply research it. You know, I would go into the depths of it, into the history, the culture, the people, the geography and music, their, you know, whatever. Like when we did Kashmir one year, I took the whole team to Kashmir. And then I even said, hey, what is Kashmir in popular imagination? And we thought Shami Kapoor and all the Hindi films that, you know, had Kashmir singing.
These are Bollywood actors. So yes,
yeah.
and
So
iconic Bollywood actors.
So you know, it was not just we brought serious design. We brought even design that we thought was fun, which was you can use the word kitsch, though I don't like it too well, because even when we did kitsch, we did it very carefully and not with. But yeah, we brought in the popular idiom. We brought in fun things. So design can never be that serious. It must have whimsical elements, but it must have some root and some depth to it. And that's what we tried to do over the years.
Right. And AL, you know, nowadays luxury is typically associated with the West, but you beg to differ. And so tell us what luxury means in the context of India.
So you know, to me, firstly, the word luxury only means something that gives you a feeling of well-being. You know, it gives you, you know, some satisfaction. But I prefer to use the word luxurious, because to me, it's the quality of something that it gives, which is important. So, you know, it can be, so luxurious is the word I use. And I thought about it, and what in India did we imagine was a luxurious experience? And if you think about it, most Indians would say it would be the sari, the Banarasi sari or the Kanjivaram or the Jamdani sari that their mothers got in their weddings. Yes. Or it would be a beautiful shawl from Kashmir, you know, a Kashmir shawl, what we call a Kanni shawl. And, or then it would be the refinement of fragrance, attar, what we call. It would be the refinement in even a pan. I don't know what you would call a pan.
But the betel leaf, it's a betel leaf with nuts inside it.
Yeah. So luxury can be very small and very large. It can be anything. It is something that brings you sense. And you know what? More than luxury, there's a word in India that we call ras. You know, so an experience or an object must have ras in it. You know what is ras? It is when it creates a sublime feeling in the viewer, you know. So a good dance performance, a musician, a poem, if it has something which elevates your spirit, which gives you a sublime feeling, then they say it has ras. It has ras in it. So for me, a luxury is something that carries a little ras in it, which carries something, any object, small, simple, even a candle. But if the jasmine in it gives you a good feeling, then it's luxury. And so I thought that let's look at everyday luxuries. So instead of making just very expensive, huge things, we decided to work. I thought that you must have luxury every day, every moment. From the minute you get up, your bed sheets must have luxuries. So we do these fine, you know, 400 thread count, pure white bed sheets. Organic things. You know, your fragrance must be pure, so we do a lot of your fragrance, frankincense, and so on, jasmines. So luxury is the mug that you have. If it's handcrafted, so beautiful handmade mug, or if it's beautifully designed. So every moment of your day, you have something which gives you a feeling of joy, and that's what we tried to do as our idea of luxury.
Right. You, of course, have also done a lot to revive certain crafts that were languishing because there just wasn't any kind of, at first, of course, indigenous demand. Now we can talk about a demand from around the world. So I wanted you to please touch upon two particular crafts that I think have been really, I mean, all of them have been really quite remarkable, the efforts you've put into them. But one is Kansa and the other is Nakashi.
True. So Kansa comes from these tribal craftspeople in Orissa, and actually, frankly, I can't even take any credit for the design. It was designed by someone called Pinakin Patel, and it was in an exhibition done by Paramparik Karigar, which was in Bombay. I went to see the exhibition, and they are the ones who initiated this, actually. But when I saw it from the retail point of view, I said, you know, we are doing so many dinner sets and everything, but we don't have something, we don't have thalis in our Good Earth. So we must have thali. And what better than these thalis? So we got to the only thing I can say is what we've done is that we've worked with them for like over 17 years now. And we, of course, then we evolved new designs as we went along. We have a very close relationship with these karigars. And also, let me tell you, Gayatri, all this is beaten by hand. We have films which tell you how they are done. It's a very difficult process. But, you know, Kansa, Ayurveda says, is the most healthy way to eat your food on Kansa.
And but these can you explain what Kansa is?
Oh, so Kansa is an alloy. It's bronze. It's an alloy of copper and tin. And it becomes, it's an alloy which you have to have a certain percentage of it. And this is something that Ayurveda had recommended. You eat your food in Kansa because it makes the food alkaline. And it's healthier for you. So we decided to go heavily into Kansa. Now Kansa is, these guys, they only make a limited amount. They, no matter what we say, they say, no, we can't make more than this. So we've always just had, and we pick up everything they give us. We've never rejected a thing, whether the size is big, small, and none of it matters. We've never, by the way, we've never rejected anything of any craftsperson. We just pick up everything.
I'd like you to talk about that, because I think that's a very unusual and wonderful policy. And I'm sure not always the most economically sort of beneficial. But please tell us a little bit about that. And when did you decide to take that decision?
No, you know, Gayatri, I never decided. This was instinctive. I said to our team, I said, you can never, because these guys are people who depend on us, you know, and what will they do with the rejects? What will they do with it, you know? So we cannot reject. So I said, pick it up. We'll put it in a sale. We'll put it in our sale, you know. Of course, we pick it up. They give it to us at a slight discount, etc. But we pick up from all our craftspeople, and we have badly printed natural dye prints. Then the girls they work it. I mean, it's created a lot of creativity within Buddha trying to recover, you know, rejected goods. But we have never rejected and never not paid for anything that they made for us.
Yeah. I actually would like to come back to that point because my next question is going to be on sustainability. But I'd also like you to just spend just a couple of minutes talking about Nakashi.
Yeah, so one was Kansa, which was in Orissa, and we recorded it. And the other one, there are many, of course, there's Banaras, there are many others, but the one that you're talking about is Nakashi. Nakashi happened when we went to Kashmir. Remember, I told you that we took the team to Srinagar, and then we visited the homes of these wonderful, we were working with Asia Crafts, the person who runs Asia Crafts, in wonderful person, I forget the name, and he was wonderful. And through him, we met we went to the homes of the artisans in Kashmir, and we realized, Gayatri, that they were doing such painstaking work with almost a single thread brush, you know, making fine things. And their eyes, they told me that their eyes are giving way because they have to make, that's the tradition. That's how they get money. The finer it is, the more money they get. So then I challenged the design team. I said, can we make designs which are not so fine, but which are still pleasant and but what I do always feel, and I always do it, I don't let a design go out of the, let's say, understanding of the craftsperson. You see, it's very important if you work with crafts that you must understand where they come from. You know, people, so I know that they will do flowers, they'll do birds, they'll do things that they understand. But I know that sometimes modern designers, unfortunately, start giving them things which are totally out of their experience. They give them things to make, like black and white, you know, a bus stop or a, you know, hand or some strange dancing figure. Now that doesn't gel with the craftsperson. So then his spirit doesn't come into that design. It's very important that the craftsperson understands the design, identifies with it, and then creates, because it always has to come from his spirit. And that's why we created a lot of designs, and we're very proud of the work that we've done with Nakashi. A lot of exporters have picked up a lot of these ideas and designs, and which I'm very happy for. I'm happy for the craftspeople. And this is what we do time to time, yeah.
And so, and you know, now of course it's very, everyone's talking about sustainability. But you, from the very onset of Good Earth's inception, have embraced that philosophy. Your entire textile, you know, your offerings, fabric offerings at Good Earth are all sustainable. It's, I think, been more than 10 years of Sustain, which is your, you know, in-house apparel brand. So how did you come upon sustainability? How were you sort of so ahead of the curve, so to speak?
Yeah, I always felt, yeah, you know, when we were doing clothes 10 years ago, why did I start clothes? It's because I personally couldn't find anything to wear which was simple, which was well made, and which was not, you know, and I had put on some weight, and so it was not for very, you know, slim people. You didn't get much. I also actually happened to have a conversation with a lady called Tara Bhattacharya, who's the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. And she's the mother of my cousin-in-law. And Taraji said to me, ki, you know, she only wears khadi. She only wears khadi sarees, day, night, wherever she goes.
And what, she told, sorry, could you just tell, what is khadi for those who may not be familiar with it?
So khadi is really the fabric, which was the fabric of India, so to speak. It was the hand spun and hand woven fabric that could be made, that was made across villages across all India. And then it went out of fashion when the British started using cotton mills in England to bring back inexpensive cotton. And the khadi industry started dying out. And, you know, so it was actually Mahatma Gandhi picked it up as a cause to say that we will weave our own cloth, we will spin our own cotton, we will weave our own cloth. And that was in a way a defiance to the, you know, enforcement of you British giving us their mill-made fabrics. And so during the independence movement, everybody, including my mother, she burnt all her English cloth saris, and they all started wearing khadi. So khadi is a very emotional fabric for all Indians. So when Mahatma Gandhi's daughter Taraji said to me, I don't have any nice khadi to wear when I go abroad. I would love to wear a nice khadi non-sari, you know, outfit. That's when the idea came to me. I said, you know, if I want to do anything, why don't I do it in khadi? In fact, what I'm wearing is also khadi. And so we started so then I thought khadi will sustain our culture. It will sustain our, what you call, I mean, we ourselves cannot do much, but we're giving a signal to say that you can use khadi in your day-to-day life. But, you know, khadi has to be well treated. There are many weights of khadi. So we had to do a lot of research in it. So when you say sustain, Gayatri, sustain in the world, in the Western world, sustainability is all about not using plastic and, you know, more to do with the planet, which is, of course, very critical. Though, having said that, let me just add that if you use so much fossil fuel to heat and cool your homes to a point where in summer you wear sweaters and winter you wear t-shirts in the Western world, I don't see anything sustainable. So sustainability is a way of thinking. It's a lifestyle. Right. And for India, sustainability is about sustaining a way of living. It's sustaining a culture. Our culture, it's sustaining our traditions. It's sustaining the livelihood of traditional artisans. And of course, it is sustaining the planet, no doubt about it. So I think it's when everything is in harmony, then it's sustainable. And that's how I look at it.
Right. Good Earth, of course, also has, forget about the domestic huge following and popularity within India. It also appeals to a widespread global consumer. What do you think appeals to people outside of India, you know, of a brand that is so inherently rooted within Indian tradition?
Well, that's really for them to say. But if you were to ask me, I think if a design has a certain timelessness about it, and yet it has an immediate modern feeling, it automatically appeals to people, you know. And our designs, of course, as you know, as this picture is showing you, it reminds me, is as our name being Good Earth, we adopted everything from the earth to be our inspiration. So one Vaibhav, which is the Vedic way of looking at the world. It's the splendor of the forest, the birds, the bees, the sun, the star, the moon. And you'll see all our designs will have a moon, it'll have a bird, it'll have a... So we want to always stay connected with nature. And maybe that's the other thing that appeals to people, because nature is universal and it's for everybody to stay connected with nature. In your home also makes you feel good. And nature doesn't mean just with design, it also means with fragrance. So we do natural fragrances, we do natural incense, we do natural aromatherapy blends. So nature is a very close thing to us, and maybe that's the reason we resonate. That I don't know.
So I also want you to touch upon some wonderful collaborations you've done. I've just pulled up a gem of a hotel in Jaipur, and tell us, because you've done these design interventions in different places, and if this particular image, I think, will speak to a lot of people around the world. It of course evokes a very quintessential India. How do you come upon these design collaborations?
So, this collaboration, this was at one point when we were doing furniture as well. A lot of people said, why don't you do interiors? And, typical as businesses are, everybody said, yes, let's start a new division. And so we started a division in interiors, which we called Charbagh. And we created a wonderful showroom. And then there's this young, very talented designer called Adil Ahmed. He came on board and I gave him the creative, thing. But his creativity was really for spaces, because he is a genius with how he reimagines spaces. But Good Earth had the strength of color, of pattern, of design. And the two things together created this most marvelous restoration of this palace Raj Mahal, which was the first, commission that we took on with Charbagh. And so, Gayatri, our designers went to Jaipur. They stayed there for many days. I wanted everything to be relevant. And one of the reasons why we put in so much wallpaper was because I said that the tradition, we must always go back to the tradition. Tradition in Rajasthan is to have surface decoration on their walls. And all Rajasthani palaces have surface decoration. But if I'm doing a modern Rajasthani palace, I don't need to paint it. I can actually do wallpapers. So then the designs came on, and these were all the designs that were created by our most talented team of designers over the years, over a long period of time. Yeah.
So I want you to quickly speak about Paro, and then I'm cognizant of time, so I also want to open it up for some Q&A. So I'll turn the comment section back on and then see what questions have come our way. So speak to us a little bit about Paro, please, and what that is.
So Paro is, it's what we call the soul of Good Earth. It's less of a commercial venture. It's more as just an offering to people. My daughter Simran is extremely passionate about wanting to go back into our own culture, because the wisdom, ancestral wisdom that we carry in this country. Look, Good Earth, we try to celebrate the design heritage of India. But Paro, we want to celebrate more than that. We want to celebrate the philosophy, the underlying culture. Yes, we wanted to say that in India, we have this whole wisdom, Vedic wisdom, which the world is now looking at only as Ayurveda and yoga, but there is a lot more. It's about living in harmony with the cosmos. It's about the changing seasons. We all, modern Indians, we are aware of words like Savan, Upvas, but none of us really do it. So we want to nudge people back.
What do those words mean, Savan and Upvas?
So Savan means the season of the rains. Upavas means fasting. And, we had a lot of traditions that as the seasons come, you prepare the body for the new seasons and you celebrate the season. And these are all little things that got lost in India, because in our westernized world, including me, myself completely, this is all trying to learn and go back. And so we are as much learning as we are imparting the knowledge. It is for all of us to learn and all of us to nudge each other to say, let's look at the ancestral wisdom which we had, and let's try and live our lives with those. And of course, they have to be modulated for modern times. Things that work then may not work now, but the root and the wisdom doesn't change. And so yes, this is our fragrant pharmacy. I'm passionate about fragrance, and we do every kind of oil, every kind of fragrance, jasmines, frangipanis, lavenders, firs, pines. So we're trying to bring all this back to but honestly, a lot of it is also, we do what you call workshops, where Simran and her team, they invite people who are masters in Ayurveda, and we even talk about things like sensuality, because we find that in India what's happened is, or in the West, people associate wellness with a monastic feeling. West, that means you be well. But in India, actually, well-being was swasti, and swasti meant you were in harmony with your body, your mind, and your soul. So sensuousness in a woman or a man, sexuality, these are all things that were very much part of our culture, and which we seem to have shied away from, and we're trying to bring that back. We had a wonderful lecture on women's sexuality and sensuality, and many such things. So it's exploring all the facets of our wisdom, our ancient culture. That's Paro.
That's right. And is Paro available all over the world, like Good Earth, online, or how does it?
Paro is a baby, and it's just we've got a lot of everything in Paro. Even the clothes in Paro are like one-offs, and we do only hand spun, handmade, things like that. All our oils are also very fresh, made very fresh. We actually not very commercial, I must confess to you. And though we have lovely yoga clothing, and we also have a lovely yogini, Mini Shastri, who's doing a whole line of what we're calling Ayurvedic swasti. So we'll be having a lot of things very soon. And if all goes well, maybe in a year, we will put some Paro out on websites and be able to ship it everywhere.
Well, that's great to know. On that note, I'm just going to open up the comments section. And then I think this might be a little place where I can read the questions. So I'm just going to try looking at that. Okay, it seems a long journey from Bombay's Raghuvanshi Mills to, okay, how do I read the questions fully? I think the question, if I understood it correctly,
to the VNA.
Yeah, to the VNA exhibition, what's coming next is one question. I'm just going to give you a couple, AL, and then you can sort of respond to them. When is Good Earth coming to New York is another question. Another question is, I would like to know, for starting a luxury gifting services store, is good capital mandatory? Let's start with those three.
So the VNA was again, as everything, we were approached, and Good Earth was turning 20, and we had a little marketing budget for it, and we said, what better way than to promote the fabric of India, because it was the fabric of India that the VNA was going to show. And then we were supposed to host the party for it. And we, Gayatri, tell you, we went all out. We flew everything down from India.
This is the VNA in London, for those who may not know. So.
The Victoria and Albert Museum in London. And we flew down everything from India. In fact, I also said that we even flew fresh flowers from here, jasmines and tuberoses and everything. And I said, we can't have an India evening without a little flash mob song and dance, because Indians love songs and dancing. So we always add the fun element, because, you cannot be that serious about anything. A lot of my girls were horrified that I'm going to have a big song and dance flash mob at the VNA Bollywood style. But I said, no, we're going to do it. That's the way we are in India. And we did the most fun flash mob. In fact, I'm going to request my content team to put out that flash mob tomorrow on how we did the VNA. So yeah, it was fun. What was the other question?
The other question was, when is Good Earth coming to New York? And the third question was, do you need a lot of working capital to start a luxury gifting business?
Well, good at going anywhere is no longer on the cards. We find that we're relevant where we are. We're relevant in India, and it makes sense for us to stay here. We're going to be having, we are working a lot on our website, and I think we should be able to give people all over the world a much better experience of being able to buy anything they like from Good Earth. And then we welcome all of them to come to India and see us here, because then it makes it a little bit more special, you know. So we don't want, I don't think we'll be expanding anywhere. What kind of capital you need? Look, Gayatri, we started with very little when I started Good Earth. It was very, very little. And then it grew. So if you want to start right from the, you know, to be big right from the start, then I have no idea. You know,
it's of course, it's also a very different ball game today than I suppose it would have even been about 8 months ago. So.
Well, that's true also. And I think the important thing is that, yes, you do need capital. There's no question. You need support. You need a financial backing, because without that, then you cannot have the luxury of doing a lot of things that, you know, you do otherwise. But I have no idea of the number, what it means. I have no idea.
I'm going to ask you 2 questions that were sent to me prior to this talk from 2 friends of mine. And while I ask you those questions, I'll also just look up the other questions that were posted. One is, where did you learn your Ayurveda? And the second question is, will Indian consumers look less to the West and Western brands, maybe in this post-pandemic world, and look at our own sort of design, luxurious design heritage, and turn towards them? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let me clarify. I haven't learned anything in Ayurveda. We have a wonderful Ayurvedic consultant by the name of Mini Shastri. She's a yogini, and she's helping us with the Ayurveda. I'm only learning. So it's not that I know that much. I'm a student, I would say. About people going for Indian brands, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, whichever brand speaks to you is good. I mean, it doesn't have to be Indian or another country or this country. We can speak to an English person even more than some Indian people, and vice versa, you know. So I think it's the kind of person, Gayatri, a lot of it depends on an individual consumer and from where they come from. Because I have English friends who love what we do, and yet we have Indians who only want to buy a Versace dinner set. So that's okay. I mean, each one must buy what gives them joy.
Right. One question you have is, what difficulties did you face while founding your brand? That was in the beginning. And then a second question is, what are the main challenges Good Earth faces as a company? What in your mind are the next steps for the brand?
Look, the challenges we faced initially were tremendous. I mean, I wanted to close it down every year. I would swear I can't take it anymore, and I couldn't close it down. I couldn't bear it. Gayatri, there was no such thing as merchandising. There were no systems. I mean, there was nothing. India was a closed economy when I started. You know, the exporters wouldn't look at us because they said, Indians, no, go away. Because, you know, when we would even go to an export fair in India, handicraft, they wouldn't let us enter the booth because, you know, they said India has no business. India is not going to be running, you know, large businesses. So even if I wanted a lantern, they wouldn't look at us, you know. So
that's because they thought that there was no potential.
They thought there was no potential, and they thought our quantities will be so small, they're not worth considering. They were exporters. But you know what? One exporter very sweetly met us, and we cajoled him, and he said, okay, fine, why not? I'll give it to you guys. Do you know, today we are one of his biggest buyers, more than most of his buyers abroad. And he now tells us a lot of the others want to come to us, and we say, no, we stick to this guy because he believed in what we were doing. And what the future holds, Gayatri, nobody knows.
Come to the future in a minute, but AL, what kept you going? You said every year you wanted to shut the brand down, but you didn't.
Yeah.
Here you are many years later.
I think you're right. I think that's the one lesson I can give to every young person, is that somehow it's like once you treat it like your own baby, you just never let it go. You know, you hang on to it. You just cry, weep, you know, do everything, but you just hang on. And at some point, things do change. And that's what I can say, that there are always difficult times and in businesses and everything. But as far as possible, if life can, permit it, of course, sometimes it doesn't. So even that I'm aware of. But I think the grit to hang on through rough times is very important. Yeah.
Right. And
Never give up.
Never give up. And future plans, where do you see the brand going? I know, of course, this has been an extraordinary year in terms of retail and much more than retail, but we're talking about retail. So,
yeah. Gayatri, there's another philosophy that I've been learning and living with, which actually I read from a wonderful, what you call mythologist, Devdutt Patnaik. I don't know if you know about him, but you do. And I read he's written a beautiful book called Business Sutra, which is actually well worth reading. And I read it, and we read it to the team in Good Earth. And one of the things that stayed with me, Gayatri, was that he said, you can take a decision that you can either chase Lakshmi, which is wealth. You can either chase wealth, or you can attract Lakshmi. That means you attract the wealth. So if you chase it, then the world is a battleground, because you're fighting with everybody. You're focused only on the wealth. So you keep on chasing it. Or you attract it. You make things so beautiful. You make them so special that people will be attracted to it. And so we decided that we won't chase. So we won't chase growth. We won't chase growth for the sake of growing. We won't just go anywhere. We'll just try and get better and better and better, and then leave it to the universe.
Thank you. Well, on that note, we've spent a wonderful hour with you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Massively special to have you have your first IG Live with Interiors Academy.
My pleasure, Gayatri. It was lovely talking to you.
Take care. Stay safe.
You.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.